Hello all, more Doctor Who. Who'd have thought it? I know I promised I was going to do other sort of videos and I have got them all planned, but this one sort of came along very quickly and the series finished and I really wanted to talk about it, so I'm going to talk about Series 8. I will talk about non-Doctor Who things, but I suppose if you watch it, quite a few of you watched the last one, so I imagine a lot of people do actually want me to talk about this stuff. I'm going to be reviewing all 12 episodes, I was going to say all 8 episodes, no, it's all 12 episodes of Series 8, plus our little, the little Christmas special preview thing we got for Children in Need, which when I'm recording this is last night, but by the time I got this thing up, because I've probably got to do a heck of a lot of editing. I must warn, there are spoilers coming up, so if you haven't seen every episode of the series, I do advise you go and watch it before you watch this video, but I don't imagine you'd be enticed to come back. The Doctor is back, and this time he has an older face. This episode is a very strong season opener, I think, in comparison to the ones we've had before, and it welcomes back the wonderful Paternoster gang, who I know a lot of people don't like, but I think are brilliant, especially Strax. I mean, a lot of people do get annoyed by Strax, but I really don't. I can't get enough. He's just amazing. So they must have used this to sort of ease into the new series, and it worked nicely. It worked nicely, I think. The CGI to create the dinosaur was amazing. The Victorian era sort of was realised brilliantly, as it always is with the stories involving the Paternoster gang, especially in the Crimson Horror which we had last year, and it was great. So and there was the villain was a loose link to a villain we'd seen in the 10th Doctor episode, the Half-Faced Man, and that was very creepily realised. Dan Starkey was on form of Strax, although I think Vastra and Jenny's lesbian thing is something that's constantly brought up every time they appear. We do know, and I think they're really forcing it, so ease off on that, but other than that, the trio is amazing. I do feel a bit irritated with Clara though, as she's the one companion I'd imagine would have seen and known most about regeneration, and yet still found it very difficult to get over the fact that the Doctor has changed and has become an older man. It's something I really didn't think her character would be the one. I thought, oh great, we ain't got to worry about that, oh you're the Doctor, I mean I don't know who you are again, but she's... They even had to bring back Matt Smith in the final scenes to actually assure us, the audience, I imagine most of the audience, I suppose a few of them wouldn't, that he's still the Doctor. And we're introduced to Missy, so overall, 7 out of 10. They brought the Daleks back. Again. For me, that ruined this story. And I think, before I get into it, we've had the Daleks appear. I know they're an icon of Doctor Who, but they've appeared in every single episode. Yes, that's definitely worked. They've appeared in every single series or year since the show returned, and I think Doctor Who can survive without them for a year. I find that the showrunners, Russell T Davies as well, feels that we need to plough them in every year to make sure people still watch it. And I honestly believe if the storytelling is good enough that they don't need the Daleks. You know, I'm hoping that soon, maybe Moffat or maybe whoever takes over from Moffat has the balls to drop them for 3 years or something and see how it does. Anyway, on to the story. It's a nice concept, the idea of going inside a Dalek. There are a lot of sort of elements of stories like The Invisible Enemy and other stories like that, and it did have that nice feeling. It was a nice concept, but I think with the Daleks coming back so soon, having last appeared in last year's Christmas special, which I know is almost a year ago, but in episode point at this moment it was only 2 episodes beforehand, so it was like they really hadn't been away, but not in a good way, really. The idea of a good Dalek was a nice concept, and yeah, no, I did like the idea, but it just wasn't executed very well. We saw how dark the Doctor can become by letting, what's his name, Ross, wasn't it? Got killed by the Dalek antibodies, but he gave him a pill to be able to track where his remains go, so they know where the antibodies dump the dead bodies, I suppose, or the dead goo, as it turns out to be. So it was quite dark for the Doctor, and I think it surprised quite a lot of audience members. It felt forced. That was the idea, and the appearance of Matt Missy again reminded me of you know, with when Gretchen got killed by the Dalek antibodies. These are spoilers, so I'm not warning you again. And we see Missy again. It felt like Madame Cavarian sort of thing. This episode introduced Danny Pink, who at that point we weren't given much, but we knew he was going to be sort of the main character throughout this series. So, and the love interest of Clara, which was sort of expanded upon a little bit in this episode. So, interesting, considering the Doctor doesn't like soldiers. He's a soldier, so we'll see. Anyway, I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Now, this was a fun story. One of my favourites in the series, written by the wonderful Mark Gatiss, and I always like his stories. Doctor Who meets Robin Hood, something that hasn't been done in the TV series yet. It might have been done in the spin-off fiction. There's so much of it, so I'm hardly surprised if it hadn't been done before, and it was great. It performed amazingly. It's just a bit of a romp. After the last couple of episodes, they were a lot darker, and this one was a bit more fun. So it was great. And Ben Miller as the villainous Sheriff of Nottingham. He was fab. He was fab. For that story, I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. Listen was fab. It was a brilliant episode and really brought Moffat's writing style back to his old Blink days. And I feel it's one of his best since Blink, and had a massively spooky atmosphere throughout. It expanded upon Clara and Danny a lot already. We took a bit of a break from him in the Robots episode beforehand, and sort of that relationship where they go on their first dates, and then we sort of learn a bit more about Danny's past and a bit more of his great-great-grandson, or great-great-grandson. He's a time traveller, Orson Pink, who looks like Danny. So yeah, it was very interesting, very interesting. So, and the creepiness was right up. The wonderful ending as well. Nothing, you know, there's no distinguishable monster, but it's definitely one of my favourites from this series. And the reveal at the end, the Doctor gets to see a younger Doctor, very briefly in shadow and all that nonsense, but the first time I think we've seen it on TV, so interesting. I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. A time heist with the hands and everything. No, it wasn't that. It was a good story, but had a very interesting premise. The Doctor and Clara robbing a bank in space. It was a good idea. Executed, could have been executed a bit better. Had nice supporting characters in Sai and what's her name, Saber. Both of them were excellently drawn out. The villain, well, Miss Delphox, was excellently played by Keely Hawes, and the villain was a nice design and overall I thought was great. But the ending, it was very high desk. High desk as in, not high desk, as in like Hyde, last year's episode. I don't like that idea so much. The idea the villain is not a villain. The villain should be a villain, or if the villain's not a villain, he's not a villain. The twist, it doesn't work anymore. We know it might happen. So I don't know. So I'm giving this one a 6 out of 10. I do enjoy Gareth Roberts' writing, but I think with Stephen Moffat's contribution to this episode, I think it did sort of nullify it a little bit. I know there was the need for Danny's character to be expanded upon, because this was sort of the one where he meets the Doctor at last, and we finally get to see the girl we see in Clara's flashback, Deep Breath, Courtney. Now, there's a lot I can say about Courtney, but I'll probably talk about it in the side segment where I talk about Kill the Moon, because she had more of a bigger part in that. So the story was great. The Skybox Blitzer, or Skybox Blitzer, whatever it was called, was brilliant, well designed, although I found it still looked a bit sort of, as a robots go, could have been a bit more terrifying. We get to see Missy again and get introduced to the character of Seb, played by Chris Addison, who I think is a brilliant comedian and played the role with a lovely bit of comedy to it. So these characters are dying, but they're not dying, so we're not sure what's happening here, which we'll find out in the series. We'll don't discuss the series finale later on. We find the Doctor and Danny clash awfully, and things between them after what happened with Journey Blue into the Dalek. We know the Doctor doesn't like soldiers, so it's a bit sort of a bit of tension between the two of them. And Clara's got a soldier side almost, which is, you know, we've had this before, although not in a romantic sense this time. So I'm giving this episode 7 out of 10. Kill the Moon. Now, it was alright. As stories go, carrying Courtney on to the next episode I think was a bad idea. After we learned from last year's Artie and Angie incident with Nightmare and Silver, kids in the TARDIS, they really don't work. especially when they're annoying like Courtney. I just, any scene she was in, I don't know what it is about these characters, but I suppose with in a Doctor Who universe, these ones just, I don't know. I disliked Never and Silver for Artie and Angie, and I disliked Kill the Moon for Courtney. I know the story was alright, the story would have been meh. If she wasn't in it, I'd be gone, it's an alright story. I think the idea, and once again, the villain's not a villain. So anyway, but the final scene with the Doctor giving Clara the option to destroy the moon or to let it live and see what happens. Yeah, that was probably one of the best decisions for a companion we've ever had for a long time, and Clara's reaction was a very true one. Now she just had enough of it, and after what we've seen the Doctor can do, I could sort of see. So yeah, it did redeem it, that final scene. But even so, it's getting a 5 out of 10. Now, Mummy on the Orient Express. Now this one is a cracker. As stories go, if you had to pick one story out of this whole series, it has to be this one. It's written excellently, and it's definitely competing for my favourite episode of all time. It's just, the mummy was realised amazingly. The idea that you have 66 seconds and only you can see the mummy if you're about to die. It's great. Now we've got picked off one by one. Once again though, something that seems to be a real trend with this series, it's the villain's not a villain. The mummy wasn't actually a monster. He's a soldier. And you know, in this case only, so I enjoyed it so much, I'm not letting it affect me at all. You know, the great characters, especially Frank Skinner's Perkins, brilliant character. Frank Skinner did it great. Comedians, they always work in Doctor Who. Well, in most cases, I think anyway. So yeah, I can't really see. Jenna Coleman, brilliant. Story, amazing. All the good supporting actors. And although the only thing I did sort of consider was how Clara forgave him, but I suppose you could call off after time. I'm not letting it ruin it. 10 out of 10. I can't help it. 10 out of 10. Now Flatline. Now that was a story. It wasn't much of one, but it was a story. Flatline was written by the same writer as Mummy on the Orient Express, so I came into it expecting incredibly highly of it after what previous weeks, but just disappointed. I don't know, I just didn't like it. I think after having Danny and all the Danny bits on Earth, which you've seen dotted throughout the series, we haven't actually had a real story where it's where it's not really Earth-based of any kind, and I think that's ruined this story. It just didn't feel, I don't know, feel like proper Doctor Who. I don't know what that was about it. The childish shrinking was an excellent idea, but I think that was probably one of the best ideas of the story because I didn't get into it. The creatures were a nice idea, but the way they were realised, I just wasn't interested. Anyway, so that one's going to get a 5 out of 10. In the Forest of the Night, it didn't get better. After Flatline, I thought, we're going to get better now. Better episode. I thought it was a nice idea, the forest growing all over London. But like quite a few stories in this series, it was a nice idea, but I don't know. Definitely the worst of this run anyway. A lot of the stories redeem themselves, but I think this was the one that didn't really do that. We had Danny and Clara's more sort of discussion about their relationship and how Clara's willing to stay with him, but after sort of what happened with the forest, but that, and kids in the TARDIS again. That just, I don't know. We just didn't get that one. So, and the same. This is the 4th time this has happened. This series, the baddie is not a baddie. For Mummy and the Orient Express, I accepted it, but for the other cases, it's just, you know, we've had this 4. Can we just have a baddie, please? So I'm giving that one a 4 out of 10. Not interested. And it was redeemed by the finale. Moffat, you did wonders for this one. With Missy being revealed as the Master, I thought it was actually a very bold twist, considering that's definitely cemented the idea that Time Lords can change gender, although the Master is known for not being able to keep the same body. So, you know, on the fence still with that. For me, that was something that scared me a little bit, because as Doctor Who goes, that's one thing I don't like, the idea of the Doctor becoming a woman. I'm not sexist in any way, but you wouldn't change an icon's gender just because the ability could possibly be there. And since the Doctor's always been male, I have no objection of being a black Doctor, or any, you know, skin colour is not a thing. It's just a male character. It's a male character and always been a male character. You know, I sound very sort of stuffy and upright about that, but anyway, discussion for another video. The story was brilliant, and the return of the Sidemen with the iconic St. Paul's Cathedral, and even linked back to the invasion with the side of the head. So that was excellent. This was the third time as well, Doctor Who related episode or any, you know, something Doctor Who related, you know what I mean in a second. And it made me cry. And it was the scene in which we reveal that the Brigadier is a Cyberman and was came back from the dead along with everyone else and saved his daughter, and the Doctor got that, you know, he finally got that salute from the Doctor. Yeah, that just got me, absolutely got me, and I had something like that, seriously, for that scene. It gave me closure to the character as well, gave us closure, I think, and that was wonderful. The other two occasions, I will tell you now, Vincent and the Doctor, in which the Doctor takes Vincent forward in time to see how his work affects modern art, and the other example being an adventure in space and time with David Bradley playing William Hartnell, the concluding scenes where he doesn't want to go and crying to himself on the fireplace. Good powerful stuff. Anyway, so Danny's dead, Clara's depressed, the Doctor's depressed, didn't find Gallifrey. It was a bit of a dark ending to the series, really. You know, they're all moving on. So, we get to see the Christmas special. Nick Frost, Nick Frost of all people, Frost, playing Santa Claus, and it looks fantastic. It looks light-hearted, and it's something we could need. Clara is back, so it looks like it's not going to be sort of closure to her character yet, which I'm glad of, because it would have been a very sad, very sort of odd ending for Clara otherwise. So I'm glad that she's come back for this, and I'm interested. We got Nathan McMullen and the wonderful Dan Starkey as elves. So what more could I ask for? Sorry, this has been such a long video. Anyway, it's been very long-winded, so I'm gonna just finish it here. Overall, I'm gonna give the series finale a 9 out of 10, and the series as a whole, I don't know, about a 7 out of 10. There's some crackers of stories. The finale, the opener, Mummy and the Orient Express, Listen, we've had some good cracking stories in this. And then there's a few very, this project series has had the most amazing stories and the most not very good stories. So I don't know what to say about it. I think it's positive. I would sit and watch every single one of those episodes again. So anyway, don't forget to subscribe, like, favourite, and all that nonsense. I'll see whichever video I make next, which probably now in the luck I've been having will be the Christmas review, the Christmas special. No, Creepy Chaos is coming, so I'll do an unboxing for that. Check out my other channels, which will be somewhere, I forget how it's all laid out. So check out my other channel, Carvenites, for comedy videos, whenever I do them. And not on a regular basis, but I've just done one recently, so check that out. And check out other videos on this channel, the last time's video where I talked about Doctor Who, as I'm doing now. So like, favourite and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Drax was on fire, I was going to say. That's a thing to give the bleeper at the end.